Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Francesca, maybe go back a page or two. First of all, I want to thank you, our wonderful training compliance coordinator, Francesca Arana, from Texas State University Small Business Development Center Network. My name is Adrian Slater. I'm a commercial real estate broker with Commercial Border Partners based in El Paso, Texas and Ciudad Juarez. I've been a real estate broker for about 20 years, and before that, 10 years as a commercial appraiser. So I'm happy to be here with everybody today. Thank you for joining us. I'd also like to introduce my partner, Mr. Roberto Chavez. He's an attorney with Scott Holtz, who will help us understand the legal aspects of our discussion over this 4-part series. So Roberto.
Thank you, Adrian. Yes, my name is Roberto Chavez. I've been a real estate attorney for a little over 7 years now. And as Adrian said, I'm going to be presenting on the legal impact that COVID has had on real estate and how you can better protect yourselves as tenants or landlords. And so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Francisca, for giving us the platform to present this. And today's presentation will be more on the commercial side, so it'll be Adrian's take, but tomorrow it'll be a little bit more on the legal side, specifically force majeure, which has come as a very important clause nowadays with the pandemic, and we'll get into those details tomorrow. But if there's any questions that I can answer, I'm going to be here throughout the presentation, and I'm more than happy to chime in with any questions or comments that might come up. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Roberto. So I'm going to provide some real life scenarios and experiences along with our presentation today. I'm going to move fairly quickly, and we have limited time. So what we'll do is we'll take breaks, I don't know, every 15 or 20 minutes to see if there's any questions in the chat box and allow everybody to ask your questions. And if you don't have any during the presentation, we'll open it up for Q&A afterwards. Okay, Francesca, if you'd like to start the first slide. So quick roadmap. Today, we're going to look at COVID-19's impact on commercial real estate. We'll look at the effects on lending and liquidity and your operations. We'll take a look at it from both the tenant and landlord perspective. I think most of you all are probably on the tenant side, so that will be our focus. We're going to look at 2 different property types. We'll focus on retail, and then we'll also take a look at office spaces and how it's affected those 2 properties. We're going to take a look at how we might think about or rethink working, living, and shopping and what people are calling the new normal. Don't think that's been quite defined yet, but that's where we'll try to head. And then we want to focus on you all as small business owners and how we must all adjust to survive in today's environment. I'm also a small business owner. I own my company, and we only have 4 employees, so we've got to think about how we take care of our employees and a sustainable business model for ourselves. Okay, and then we'll take a look at opportunities for the small business owner. So what has changed? Boy, what hasn't, right? When we look back on 2020, I think we'll all agree that the world's changed fundamentally around our relationships, around our behaviors. We need to acknowledge that we're seeing the future direction of many activities like traveling, shopping, entertainment, work, sporting events, and of course, how do we lease and buy real estate? Responses which might be appropriate in one city or location or organization might not be suitable for others. But the common thread around the United States is that our lives have definitely changed, and finding what that new normal is will be what we'll have to focus on until an effective vaccine is found. Specifically in real estate, we see how behavioral change is affecting the dynamics as we knew it. On-site offices versus home offices, on-site retail versus online retail, physical tours or physically taking a course such as this versus online and virtual classes. And then on-site closings where you go to a title agency and sign the paper in person, and now everybody's using DocuSign. And of course, how we interact with each other through these mediums on the internet, Zoom and WebEx and things of that nature. So, okay, next slide, Francesca. So obviously the COVID-19 has had an impact on commercial real estate. We're going to take a look here at how it's affected different sectors. Lending right now, markets have remained accessible. Lenders are still lending money, but what I'm hearing, it's becoming a little bit more difficult to get funding. During the summer months and spring months, banks and lenders were pretty much focused solely on SBA and COVID-related opportunities for bailout. And I think lending right now, the trend is just sideways. Liquidity, the availability of funds, we're seeing has decreased. Again, funds are available, but not like we saw the beginning of the year or last year, of course. Leasing volume. We'll talk about this in quite a bit more detail. We'll show you some statistics on what's happened specifically in the Austin market. But as you all can imagine, activity in the commercial real estate arena for new leases has gone down substantially over the last 6 to 9 months. Likewise with investment, I had, excuse me, a client of mine had a lease recently delayed for more than 3 months because the landlord's lender wanted more information on the tenant's financial status, more information on the ability of the tenant to meet its financial obligations of the lease. So, COVID has impacted my clients in that way. And so you all as tenants or buyers of real estate, you'll need to be more prepared than ever to provide your financial statements to landlords and to lenders. And then of course, operations, boy, what hasn't changed? As a result of social distancing and governmental directives, hotels, shopping malls, office, many other non-essential businesses were closed temporarily. Now we're seeing 50% operations, 75% operations. Bars and restaurants obviously have impacted more than others. And then higher operational costs for users. Spending money now on enhanced cleaning and sanitation, security and checkpoints, and we'll talk more about inventory and carry cost as we move on throughout the seminar. Okay, next slide. So this is just a quick overview. This is a snapshot of real estate investment trust activity. This was the year over year from May of 2019 to May 2020. Obviously, this is a couple months old now, but it just shows you the activity in real estate trust. Real estate trust is a publicly traded company that focuses in the ownership and operation of income-producing commercial real estate. And you can see that pretty much across the board, shopping centers, hotel, retail, office were all down. Healthcare and industrial were actually up. Those sectors being areas that were not as impacted. Okay, next slide. So we're going to take a look here at some of the pandemic disaster relief loans that were made available. Hopefully some of you have applied for some of these funds. Some of them are now closed. The first one, like the protection program, the PPP, those funds have run out. Hopefully there will be a second installment whenever Congress and the president can come together and come together on agreement. Right now, the SBA is accepting the forgiveness loan applications, and you have 10 months from the time that you received your PPP funds to finalize your forgiveness application. So if you were one of the beneficiaries of those funds, you've probably already spent the money, and it's time to think about filling out your forgiveness application. The EIDL forgiveness advance, that was a grant for $10,000. That's since been closed. Go to the next slide. And I'd just like to throw a shout out to Francesca and her team at Texas State. You know, they specialize in SBA loans, and well, not loans, but per se, but supporting small business owners like ourselves. So they're available to help with any questions you might have in this regard. So the EIDL, the injury disaster loan, that's still available. Those loans are up to $150,000. Those are limited to for-profit, and then other certain nonprofits can also access those funds. Express Bridge loan, those are still open, and then the SBA Express, those are open through the end of the year, so another couple months, up to $1 million. So there are funds out there. There's funds available from the federal government, and of course, and your local government and other private opportunities. You just have to educate yourself and go out and access those monies. Okay, next slide. So if you are looking for a loan, you know, there's a few things that you need to ask yourself when talking to your banks, to your lenders. Typically, if a building already has a loan on it, the landlord's flexibility is going to be somewhat dictated by their loan covenants. So when they're negotiating a lease agreement, they might have to get certain consents and authorizations from their lender. If you're looking to obtain a loan, you need to ask, you know, can it be assumed? Can you have a second lien? And what kind of prepayment penalty is the loan going to have if I take it out? Okay. Go ahead, next slide. So we're going to take just you know, a quick look from the landlord's perspective here. I assume that again, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume that a lot of us on the call today are tenants, not landlords. But it's helpful to understand how landlords view their leases, so you can understand their motivations, what makes them tick, so to speak. You know, right now, landlords have been bombarded by their tenants. Hopefully, most of the tenants that landlords have are still in business, and they were able to weather the temporary closures that we saw in late March and April and May. You know, landlords have seen their rental income decrease substantially, specifically in retail and obviously in office. I have one large retail landlord here in El Paso tell me a few weeks ago that at the height of the crisis, their rental income was off by about 40%. It's still currently off about 80 or 85%. So landlords are continuing to see the strains associated with tenants not being able to pay their rent. Landlords are discussing refinancing and loan deferments, loan payment deferments with their lenders. Leasing activity, as we'll see further, is decreased. So landlords are if you're trying to lease a shopping center, you'll see a lot more vacant or for lease signs than they've seen in quite some time. You know, a lot of tenants are looking at force majeure notices, and my partner Roberto will educate us all in great detail later, well, tomorrow on this subject. E-commerce, you know, I'm sure while some of us were on lockdown, we went to Amazon, we went to eBay, we went to other places for our goods, and in fact, I know a lot of friends were even shopping online at Walmart for groceries. You pull up and they open up your trunk and put your groceries into the trunk. So, you know, e-commerce is the wave of the future. We'll talk again a little bit more about that, but that has decreased the demand for retail space. Large investors of regional shopping centers, they're looking to convert mall space and anchor spaces into mixed-use properties. We'll give some interesting examples about that here a little bit later. Okay. Next slide, please. We had, I think we had to take a quick break. Do we have a question in the chat? Okay. Yeah, this is a great question. If you don't mind, we'll talk about this a little bit later. The question is how do we see landlords negotiating rent abatement and rent deferment? We've got a whole section on that we will address that question. Okay, so let's take a look at it from the tenant perspective. So 90% of businesses in the U.S. are small businesses. We employ 50% of the workforce, and we must adapt. We've got to figure out how to survive. If you're still in business today and you've weathered the storm through the summer, then I think you're in pretty good shape. And it's a question of fine-tuning your operations. But after rent, our biggest cost is salaries. And small businesses are typically defined as those that have between or below 750,000 and 35 million in sales, and between 100 and 1,500 employees. So we know what's happened. We had the government mandated closures. I never realized, but COVID taught me that I am truly non-essential. And as a real estate broker, what I bring to the table is not the same as the school teachers that teach our kids, the firemen and the police officers. So it was quite an eye-opening time to realize, you know, are you an essential business or not? And if you are, then you know the rules of the game are a little bit different. So what have we done? You know, how do we pay our rent? How do we pay our salaries with no sales income? How do we negotiate those rental deferments or abatements with landlords? You know, and the new normal. What are the trends that we're seeing that we are now putting in place? You know, guidelines on social distancing. I'm sure everybody has now seen the floor markers to help people understand what 6 feet looks like. You know, the stickers on the floor at the grocery store checkout counters. You know, cleaning of common areas. the local grocery store that we go to, they've got a sanitary lead, and you see that person wiping things down almost constantly, and I like that. That makes me feel good, because makes me think that the business owner cares enough to clean their facility and take care of not just their customers but their employees. Protecting your employment, your equipment, and your employees. PPE, masks. Whether you agree with them or disagree with them, I think they're here to stay for quite a long time. Most businesses that are open to the public now require masks, and I don't think that's going to change. So how are you going to protect your employees and make sure that they're in a safe environment? And by doing that, you've got to spend money. That's increasing your operational costs, and those are costs that you did not have going into your 2020 budget. When you were looking at how much you're going to have to spend on facility maintenance and janitorial and cleaning, those are the types of things that you didn't take into account, but I'm sure you will for your budget in 2021. And the space modifications. We went to a clothing store not too long ago, and the store, instead of having their racks basically right next to each other, they had their racking and their clothing displays spread out, so that if you're looking at one rack, you're 6 feet away from the person who's at the rack next to you. And what has that done? That's required you to either put less inventory on the floor or potentially look at taking more space. So traditional retailers, they've been buying warehouses and converting large big boxes to fulfillment centers. Amazon, one of those. We've got a large regional shopping center here in El Paso that JCPenney's left, Macy's left, Ross left, pretty much everybody left. The only large department store we have left is Dillard's. And so the owner of that shopping center has retrofitted those spaces, those big box spaces, to gymnasiums, to fitness centers. And so landlords are having to be creative with how they repurpose their space. And then you as the retailer, I'm sure that you have already adapted to consumer behaviors. And if you haven't, then I highly recommend you do it sooner rather than later. Curbside delivery, takeout options, online sales. These are all things that really in March and April, we might have said this is the wave of the future, but the future is really, it's here now. So, okay, next slide. So again, just a little bit more detail from the previous slide. Online retail. Some retailers, if you are selling more online, you might need less space. There was some discussion about brick and mortar stores going the way of the dinosaurs. With everything going online, I think at the end of the day, that's not going to happen. We'd like to be able to get in our cars and go out and do things and not sit in front of a computer all day, every day. Malls, we just talked about that example. Restaurants, if you're a restaurant and you're in a shopping center, my guess is you're now going to consider taking an end cap space, having a drive-through, having a pickup window, having outdoor seating, patio. That's really that's a consideration that's not going to go away anytime soon. Of course, home delivery, catering. I have a friend of mine who owns a Moe's Mexican restaurant, and they They did not have a drive-through. Luckily, they were on an end cap of a shopping center, and so the landlord allowed them to construct a drive-through. And within 2 or 3 weeks of that drive-through opening up, their sales increased by 40%. And then BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store. Again, curbside pickup, that's here to stay. Next slide. Couple of photos for you all. You know, there's a lot more opportunity for available spaces, specifically retail. I like the photo on the bottom left. It says this empty space is full of possibilities, and that's what we have to focus on, is what are the possibilities and how do we get there. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of the property types. If you'd like to go to the next slide. This is a slide showing all of the retailers that unfortunately have filed for bankruptcy this year. Steinmart was a 112-year-old discounter. You know, they're looking at closing almost 300 of its stores. Of course, the company cited significant financial stress brought on by the pandemic for its decision. A couple months ago, Lord & Taylor, the oldest U.S. department store, founded in 1826. Think about that for just a second. Excuse me, 200-year-old institution filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The company was then purchased for $100 million by another fashion startup called Le Tote in 2019, and Le Tote also filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So even the biggest, strongest retailers have been no match, unfortunately, for the pandemic. Okay, next slide. So let's take a look at what has happened in the Austin retail market. This slide shows you the last 5 quarters for retail in Austin. Going back to the 3rd quarter of 2019 through the 3rd quarter of this year, you can see net absorption. Absorption is simply the amount of space that has been leased or occupied minus the amount of space that has been vacated. And as you can see, the end of last year, about 160,000 square feet was occupied. Almost 200,000 square feet the 1st quarter of this year. 2nd quarter, 78,000 square feet was vacated, and then in the 3rd quarter, 170,000 square feet was vacated. So you can see the trend has happened quickly and dramatically over the last 6 to 9 months. The vacancy rate, you can see about a year ago was about 5.5%. Now it's up over 6%. So again, the vacancy is going up in retail spaces. And interestingly, I think and makes sense, right, that the lease rates are going down. So as more available space becomes vacant, landlords become more aggressive. We've seen it really be a landlord and especially in Austin, a seller's market for probably the last decade. There's a little signs that it's right now it's a tenant's market, and it's a buyer's market. And so if you have a lease that's coming up in the next 6 or 12 months, now might be a good time to think about renegotiating your rent. And we'll take a real deep dive look into how to best go about that in our seminar next week, and give you all some real strategies for reducing your rents and maximizing, basically negotiating a lease that might be a little bit more in your favor than it might have been when you originally signed it for the landlord. So rents are continuing to go down. The projection is the rents will continue to decrease throughout the rest of 2020 and into the first half of next year. We're projecting bankruptcies and certain strategic closures will continue to happen with vacancy continuing to rise and again continuing to put pressures on rents. I saw one company recently, they had 8 locations around town, and what they did is they looked at their sales and their cash flow. They decided to close 3 of the less profitable and just keep 5 of the most profitable businesses or locations open. Okay. So we're expecting a flight to quality by tenants. There will be opportunities for locations and shopping centers that might not have been available 1 or 2 or 3 years ago. So we're looking for tenants to take advantage of opportunities to seek better locations and take advantage of market conditions as they start to move from the landlord to the tenant side. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so we'll spend a little less time, but this is just office perspective. I again don't know how many are in office leases versus retail, but you can see there's a couple of photographs here. The top 2 photographs show those floor stickers that we were talking about a few minutes ago. This is showing the top left is the reception station. You can see there's plexiglass up on top of the desk for the reception. They've got the hand sanitizer there. They've got a thermometer, the handgun, and of course the floor stickers. And then you can see even to the top right there, they've got the floor stickers leading to the elevator. And this doesn't, I don't see this as much, but and you might not be able to see the bottom right photo as well, but this was basically a rubber pan with disinfectant, the very first black square that you see. So as you walk into the office building, you step into the pad, it disinfects your shoes, and then the second pad is kind of like a bristle pad that helps you to get the water off the bottom of your shoe, and then the last is a carpet or a mat that completely dries your shoes. So this is an example of what a building owner is doing to keep their tenants safe, to keep the visitors that come to the building safe, and this is obviously this is a good thing, right? Not something we plan to do, but it's something that is happening now. So traditional offices, we're going to see a change there. Virtual offices, I think we're all we've all learned what a virtual office is, especially if you're non-essential. You've been working from home, if not today, over the last 6 to 9 months. The open seating, kind of the workstation type trend that we've seen that decrease a little bit, so as to keep employees separated, putting up the plexiglass in between workstations. We might actually start to see more private offices again. And then the last item was at the building level, landlords and building owners are investing in things that they never thought that they would have to invest in. Again, 6 months ago. So increased janitorial requirements, upgrading air filtration systems, things of that nature. Next slide, please. So this slide will show us what has happened in Austin in the office sector. It's very similar to retail. The numbers are just greater. The net absorption, as you can see, was positive at the end of last year, 300,000 square feet. We had 700,000 square feet of space vacated, more vacated than leased in the second quarter, and almost 1.4 million square feet vacated really over the last 3 months. The vacancy rate has really just mushroomed in the last 12 months, going from 9% to 14%. A lot of vacancy we're starting to see in the office sector. Asking rents. Actually, I'm sorry. I think this is a typo. Should be flip-flop, but asking rents have decreased from about $42 a square foot to under $39 a square foot. So same thing in office as in retail. Rents are going down, and vacancy and spaces being vacated are going up. We continue to forecast vacancy to climb in the office market, similar to retail, asking rents continue to decrease, at least for the next 6 months. And really we're expecting that rents won't recover for at least 12 to 15 months. Let's take a quick little break. I think we've got a question. Okay. Impact on the small office, 1,000 to 3,000 square feet. Yes, so these statistics take into account all office space, regardless of size. The smaller office spaces, I think we're going to continue to see those spaces vacated. 1 to 3,000 square foot office spaces, those are typically very, they're small businesses like my own. And I think that those businesses will continue to struggle. And, it really is going to depend on what submarket you're in, on how far rents will decrease. But I think that you can expect to see availabilities in the smaller office sizes just as well as the 10 to 20 to 30,000 square foot office sizes. And so there will be opportunities there as well. Where will it bottom out? Oh boy, great question. I wish I had a crystal ball. Rents have already decreased, as you can see, about 10% in the last 12 months. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw rents continue to decrease another 10 to 15% over the next 12 months. So, that $41, $42 square foot rent very likely should go down below 35 and into the low 30s. So yeah, these rents are quoted based on per square foot per year. And the office rents are gross rents, and the retail rents that we saw a few slides back, those were triple net rents. Okay. All right, let's move on, and we can talk about a few other questions momentarily. All right, so adjusting to survive. This is what we're doing. This is what we're seeing and what we're recommending. Demand has been fluctuating. It's tough to predict your sales. You know, it's easy to predict what sales might be over 12 months, over the coming year, but nobody could have possibly predicted what we saw this year, obviously. Um, so, um, you know, the one of the phrases that I continue to hear is cash is king. Um, you know, shoring up your cash reserves, and I think we can all relate. You know, whether we're a business owner or in our own households, you know, the rainy day fund is more important than ever now. And when it comes to running our businesses, the same thing holds true. I have read numerous reports, but one basically said that typically small business owners only have between 3 and 6 months of cash reserves to cover their operational costs and their overhead. So you got to take that into account. You know, how much money do I have to weather the storm, so to speak? Protecting your people. Talked about that a little bit already. Saw some pictures. You know, what are you doing to protect your employees? Unfortunately, we're seeing a second spike in a lot of places, or the winter spike, if you will. And quite frankly, you know, your customers must feel, or your clients, if they're coming into your store, to your office space, that that they're protected, and that you're doing what you can to protect them, taking temperatures, offering masks, all of those things matter. You know, developing return strategies that might be able to be done outside the store. You know, it's really easy to buy something online at Amazon and then drop it off at Kohl's or UPS if you don't like it, or the shirt doesn't fit. But if you're a small business owner, is there a way for you to think about that? Managing your inventory. You know, I want to spend a little bit of time on this. You know, managing your inventory is critical. You know, how much money do you have tied up in inventory? You know, how long is it going to take you to receive new product in inventory? Right now, timelines are extended for getting new product from China, from other places, and you know, how do you allow your customers to return inventory? You know, the touch, the try on, the return. You know, a lot of places are saying, you know, you can't try things on. You know, once you buy it, you can't return it. It's being clearly communicating what your company and what your store policy is with your customers. Okay, and managing your SKUs. SKU is, you know, stock keeping unit is what SKU stands for. Inventory control is referred to as SKU rationalization. In other words, the number of styles or sizes of a particular product, say a handbag, are cut, and then that drives less inventory on hand and cost decline in the process. So the less inventory that you can carry, the less cost or money outlay that you will have. Let's go to the next slide. Talking to your customers. You know, communication today is never been so important. You know, MailChimp, Survey Monkeys. You know, we see these done all the time on our kids' soccer teams, or our kids' swim teams, or at the churches we attend. You know, hopefully you've started to develop a database of your customers. Reach out to them, ask them what they think. How can they help you to improve your offering? Train your employees for customer interaction. You know, talk to your employees about what your policy is for safety, for PPE protocol. Have your employees be more customer friendly than they ever have. Make people feel welcome and warm when they come to your facility. Okay. This builds trust and loyalty. Um, you know, evaluating how your customer experience your location. You won't know that unless you ask the question. Okay. Social media. It's not so easy to launch an app. I realize that that's for very large companies or companies that have financial wherewithal. But being active on Facebook, Instagram, letting your customers know what you're doing. We went to my family went to a pumpkin patch on Sunday, and we bought a lot of pumpkins and things to decorate our front yard. And as we were walking out, the lady at the cash register said, "Hey, do me a favor. After you've decorated your front yard, take a picture of it and then tag our company, so that people know where you purchased all of your pumpkins." And I thought, wow, that's really smart, because my sphere of influence might consider going to that pumpkin patch. They might not, but that's free publicity that business didn't have to pay anything for, other than planting a bug in the customer's ears as they checked out. Okay, next slide. Okay, commercial real estate considerations. So we're going to talk a lot about this next week. Just high level. You've got to develop a lease or purchase strategy with your broker. That's why we're here, and that's what we specialize in. So again, we'll take a deep dive into the lease agreement clauses and how we can help you with that when we talk next week. And we'll talk more about how do you work with your landlord to control the environment, meaning how do you modify your space, and how do you have your landlord understand why that is so important. When you make modifications, adaptations to your space, typically you need the landlord to approve it. So you've got to talk to them about that. And we can't go back, folks. Now's the time to continue to move ahead. If it doesn't work, try something else. Don't get frustrated. We've got to adapt and learn and try new things, and that's the only way we're going to survive. So, next slide, please. I really think that the near future is going to be very opportunistic for small businesses. I think that there's going to unfortunately be a number of businesses that continue to not make it, which means there will be opportunities for us to upgrade our space, upgrade our location, find space that's already built out. A lot of restaurants, they won't take their furniture, fixture, and equipment with them. As the saying goes, this too will pass, and there will be opportunities for us to find other spaces that fit our needs even better. Again, we've already talked about lower rent, better lease terms. There will be lower startup costs potentially if you're able to find spaces that are already built out or designed for your type of business. Available workforce. Unfortunately, unemployment we've seen go through the roof. It's come back down over the last 60, 90 days, but unemployment still remains high. And there are a lot of people out there looking for work. And I think business owners will have an opportunity to find employees that can improve your offering, can help you with whatever business you're in. Less competition. I used to go to a dry cleaner right down the street. Now I got to go to one, 4 miles away. Looking at those types of businesses that aren't going to survive, and maybe there will be future niche for us in the future in that regard. Governmental incentives for new business startups. And then, of course, there will be pent up demand and Gen Z, and you know, the buying habits of today's teenagers, of today's young adults. Maybe some of you on the Zoom call today are in your early 20s. You know, the way that those people, those young adults purchase things is not the way that my generation did or does. So being able to understand patterns and how culture is changing. Next slide. So I just wanted to finish up here with some bright news. You know, it's not all doom and gloom out there, folks. You know, things are difficult, yes, but you know, Austin, you're in a market that has been hot for the last decade plus. Austin and the surrounding areas, you know, Georgetown, Red Rock, you know, you're all in a very good part of the United States. Texas is well positioned within the United States. And these are just a couple of highlights, a couple of things that have been happening in the Austin market. You know, Tesla is proposing, you know, a $1.1 billion investment out in Travis County, you know, creating over 5,000 jobs. That's great news. Let's take one more look at the next slide and a couple of other items. You know, development won't stop. It's not coming to a screeching halt. These developers who are building office buildings, they might not lease them up as quickly as they thought or they hoped when they took out the financing and started building it. But there will be opportunities, and the question is, how do we capitalize on them as small business owners? And where do those opportunities lie? And so I encourage everybody to continue to be creative, think outside the box, continue to work hard, and I guess with that, that wraps up the presentation, and we can open it up for specific questions and anything that you all might like to talk about.
For those that have questions, if it's a little bit easier, go ahead and take yourself off of mute.
Okay, so we have one question about the Austin market statistics. Curious if there's a way to find Austin asking rents based on area of town, like downtown versus Northwest Austin. Yep, absolutely. So the statistics were provided by Cushman and Wakefield. That's actually where I worked for about 15 years before going out on my own and starting my own business. But yes, if you like, we can, well, the last slide there has my contact information, my email address. If you like, send me an email, and I can help provide a breakdown between different submarkets so you can see, you know, what downtown office rents obviously are different than suburban office rents, and we can surely show you the differences between those two areas.
Orlando, can you hear me? Orlando, you're on mute.
I can hear you.
Okay. Since you're one of our SBDC advisors, do you have any questions that maybe you've come across with some of your clients as it relates to today's workshop that you may have for Adrian or Roberto?
It kind of pertains to financing the lease or the acquisition of real estate. We've been noticing a trend that banks are becoming a little bit gun shy on projects that would normally have qualified in the pre-pandemic situation. but now that we're in it, they're kind of pushing back, and these are clients that have excellent credit, 20% down, if not more. But the stigma is they're a startup, and banks right now are not being I don't want to say cooperative, but I guess they're being extremely cautious, and that's what we're seeing. And I think it's having an adverse effect on the unemployment line. And you know, even though we're in Austin and supposedly we're in a bubble, but I think that the recovery is going to be really, really slow, and we're not going to be seeing, or we won't be able to get out of this rut until probably the middle of next year, if not more in the third quarter. But it's just kind of a paradox, I guess, if you want to call it that. But there's no immediate solution that I can find right now. I've been throwing the idea that talking to bankers about developing a risk pool fund for these types of lenders, but it doesn't seem to take hold with you know, any of the bankers at this time. Even though I am talking to bankers at the lower level, it really takes the decision maker, which is probably the president of the bank, to kind of make a decision whether they want to go into a participatory type of program with other banks to fund these types of projects. And I just got a call from one of our, I guess you could say, working relationship partners, where we're trying to identify companies that can provide a product or a service for the Department of Defense. And I just kind of enlightened him that I think that's great, but now that some of these companies have taken on that idle loan, SBA has put a blanket lien on all their assets. And for them to, if they are awarded a contract, they have no assets to try to leverage that loan. So again, we're back into the same rut again. Kind of like you're going into the mud puddle and you get stuck and you can't get out. That's kind of the scenario. I know you asked for a question, but I think I just wanted to share those thoughts with y'all. Just maybe if you all have any kind of suggestions or ideas, it's something worth exploring.
Yeah, Orlando, I hear what you're saying. You know, in April, May, June, a lot of the SBA lenders were saying, you know, all of the deals that I had for real estate financing were put on hold because they were focusing on the PPP loans.
The easy money.
Yeah. Now what we're seeing is the larger banks, and I mean, you know, Wells Fargo, Chase, Citibank, B of A, their loan process was always difficult to begin with. Now it's even more so. And so where we're seeing some successes from the community banks, from some of the local lenders, whether, you know, here in El Paso, it's Westar, Capital Bank, Inter-America, some of those banks. So, you know, I think that, you know, they have more interpersonal service. Their decision-making tree is not as wide, if you will, and their investment committee approvals can happen a lot faster because there's a lot fewer people involved in the decision-making process. So that's where we're seeing some successes.
On a similar note, probably in the last 2 months, I've seen more owner financing deals than I have seen in the past year. there's been an uptick, I think, and now that you mention it, I really hadn't thought about it since I'm not really in that world, but they're probably having a hard time getting the banks to finance them. And so sellers and buyers are getting together and just creatively doing their own owner financing and doing it that way. But yeah, that's just kind of to piggyback on your comment. I've seen a lot more owner financing deals come through the office than I had seen in a while.
Right. That's what I've been kind of trying to kind of convince the borrower that their financing opportunities are pretty much on hold right now, and you need to look at the landlord or even the seller to try to come up with something creative so they can get into the door or the lease space, or as well as the acquisition of property, where you get the owner of the property to finance maybe for the first or second year, and then refi out of it and take the seller out of the picture. But some of those deals, especially here in Austin, they have a lot of pride of ownership, and the price they're kind of miles apart on the price.
Yeah,
for owner finance.
Real estate is expensive in Austin, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. Any other questions or anything we can help with? And if not today, then you have an opportunity again with Roberto tomorrow, and we'll continue the seminar next week. So if you have a question on today's presentation or tomorrow, we can always answer it at a later date as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Adrian and Roberto. If there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and end today's, and we will see y'all tomorrow. I will follow up with an email if for some reason maybe you joined a little bit late and missed a piece. You need a link to this recorded session. I'll be happy to send that to you. Everybody have a great day. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.